Hi, I'm Simon and welcome to a new video where I'm going to be sharing with you my 7 favourite games from the year of the snake. Now, these are not necessarily games that were released in that time period from the 10th of February 2013 to the 30th of January 2014, but they are games that I first came to in that time and games that I played quite extensively and obviously loved. Originally, this was going to be a list of 5 games. I've expanded it to 7 now because there were just a couple of them that I just felt wrong leaving them off the list. So they've made it in there. But there were lots of other notable mentions that I just had to bump from the list or this video would have lasted forever. As it turns out, I made a list of all of the games that I played, and I started this list at the beginning of the year of the snake because it was fully my intention to put this video out at the end of that Chinese year. But we're already into the year of the horse and I finally got round to making this video. But looking back on that list and sorting out my favourites and putting them into some kind of order, I realised there were lots of other notable mentions that didn't quite make the list. Things like Hotline Miami, Gunpoint, Fez, The Stanley Parable, Gone Home, Spelunky. All great games, all games that I really enjoyed, all incidentally indie titles as well, but unfortunately none of them I enjoyed quite as much as the 7 I'm going to share with you now. This first title is actually the newest of all of the games and the one that I've played the least. But the reason for me including it is because I know this is going to become a favourite game for me. It's something that I know I'm going to come back to time and time again, just trying to get higher scores on it. It's a very simple game, but it is, so far, my favourite thing for the PlayStation 4. And that is Resogun. This PlayStation 4 shoot 'em up is fast becoming my favourite shooter of all time. Many of you have heard about how much I like Defender or Planetoid. I talk about it quite a bit. But this game is as if Defender and a bullet hell shooter had some kind of 8th generation love child. This is what they would spawn. It's very simple in its concept. You just have to shoot all of the aliens on the screen and rescue the 10 humans who are on the level. There are special aliens that you have to shoot that then allow the humans to be released, and you have to go and pick them up before a ship comes along and takes them away, or they fall off one of the platforms on the screen. And it's chaotic and hectic and there's lots to shoot. It looks beautiful because it's kind of like fireworks, explosions, things happening. I mean, you can kind of see it in the background here. It's a circular gaming level that rotates, and so you can see things that are happening further in the distance, whereas with Defender you had to rely on your radar. This you can rely on your vision. So lots of explosions, lots of things happening, chaotic gameplay, but it never feels cheap. It never feels like very rarely it feels like the computer's cheated you. There's probably, out of the 100 times or more that I've played this game so far, there's probably only a couple of times where I've flown into a spaceship just as it was warping into the level or hit a bullet that I couldn't see. But aside from that, it's pretty flawless. So, fantastic game and one that's easy for me to recommend. It probably would be higher up on the list if I had played it more. A lot of the other titles I've put a lot more time into, but this one is fast becoming a favourite shooter. Now the 6th title on my list is something that I think most people have put at the top of their best games of 2013. It's a PlayStation 3 title, and one that, as a fan of Naughty Dog, I'd been waiting for a long time. Since the very first screenshots and very first pieces of video I saw from it, I knew it was going to be a game that I would enjoy. And that game, it's The Last of Us. Now this is a game that I'm sure many of you are very familiar with. It's picked up lots of awards, a lot of people have been raving about it, and rightly so. It's a fantastic title and one of those games that definitely makes it worth owning a PlayStation 3. It's just very, very well told, the story, great performances. It's one of those games that I found you really connect with the characters. They're very believable, but at the same time you've still got an interesting game to play through. It's not like you're just watching cutscene after cutscene. It's got very good sort of stealth elements to it. There are fights in there. You have to fight not zombies, interestingly, but humans that have been affected by a type of an infection that mutates them, a type of fungal infection. And so you've got everything from ones that are kind of like rabid zombie type people to ones that are more monstrous and the sort of things that will rip your head off, and they do if you give them a second's chance. But it's just again from Naughty Dog. I mean, they've obviously excelled with the Uncharted series. They're very good at telling film-like stories, and they've got in this one a very interesting narrative that keeps you wanting to play again and again. I think I played through the game in a few nights, and I didn't really want to put it down. There were enough points in the story where I felt, yeah, this is a good time to stop, but I still wanted to continue the story. It's the sort of thing that if I had the time, I could have played all the way through it in one go. It's filled with some quite magical moments as well. I would have liked to have shown you some of the gameplay from it, but for some footage, but unfortunately using this camera to record the television, it just looks awful. And I don't have my capture card here, but there's plenty of people who've reviewed this game online, and you can go and find out as much as you want to about it. But it didn't make it to the top of my list because I didn't want to play it again. I wasn't aching to put the disc back in. I didn't go back to it after a few months. I'm sure I will play it again in a couple of years' time, but it doesn't have that replayability for me. There is a multiplayer element to it, but I've never touched it. Again, problems with connection speeds over here, so maybe there are people who are still playing that multiplayer element. There's just been a release of some DLC that fleshes out some of the backstory of the female character Ellie, and I would very much like to see that. So, the fifth title on my list is a game that I originally bought for the PlayStation 3, and as much as I love playing it on this machine, it's actually the Mac version, I guess PC version, that I prefer. So let's go into the other room and I'll tell you a little bit about it. Well, of course, the 2012 XCOM reboot was going to make it onto my list somewhere. As some of you will remember from having watched my Gamers Living Room videos, that the original XCOM is my favourite PC game of all time, and this one I really love too, but obviously not as much as the original, or it would have easily made the top of my list. But it's still a fantastic game, and I would recommend it to anyone, even people who are not fans of this particular genre, which is turn-based strategy. And it's what Firaxis, the developers, have done is they've taken the heart and soul, what makes XCOM great, and they've managed to modernize it for a sort of younger generation or a more modern generation, and to make it accessible to console gamers. As I said before, I've got the PlayStation 3 version and it plays very well on that. I just prefer to play it on the Mac because, having played the original on the PC, I like using a keyboard and mouse for this game. And also, I can run it at a much higher resolution, so it looks a lot nicer on this system. But gameplay wise, there's no difference between them. And the gameplay of this version is very similar to the original. Firaxis have stripped away some of the parts that I think they felt slowed down the game unnecessarily. They've made the squads smaller. They've taken away the option of having multiple bases around the globe. You've just got one central headquarters. But I don't think either of those things, well, definitely the like global central base doesn't really affect the game too much from my standpoint. I like what they've done with it. You can still grow your base, expand it, dig out new chambers underground and fill them with more workshops to make production faster, more laboratories to make researching things quicker. You have places to train up your squad, and they've actually added some new elements to it, that generators, for example, that we didn't have in the original game. So you have to start thinking about power management and placing different elements of the base that are similar next to each other to gain additional bonuses. So that there's a level of strategy within base building that takes it a step further than what they had in the original game, and that is very, very good. The one element that I think I don't like as much is that you can't have as many humans on your squad. You can have quite a big roster of available members, but you can only send 6 of them out in the Sky Ranger at any one time. And one of my strategies from the old game was to fill up the Sky Ranger with lots of cannon fodder and just try and overwhelm the enemy and not worry too much about it. But with this game, you've got to be a bit more precious with your troops. I mean, in the original game, obviously you did have that element because you want to keep your better soldiers and grow them, grow their stats and make great soldiers out of them. There's not really any room for the expendable red shirt types, and I kind of miss that. I would have liked to have had larger squads, so you can just go and send out some cannon fodder to find the enemy and then pick them off with your stronger soldiers. But I think it makes a tighter game by not allowing that, so I can't really blame them for what they've done. So all in all, a fantastic title, something that I would recommend to anyone, even if they're not a fan of this type of strategy title. It's still worth a go. They've still found a way to make this genre of game exciting, and they deserve all the credit they've got for it. Well, that's game number 6, but my fifth most favourite game of the Year of the Snake is something that's on the PC. So I can't play it on the Mac. They haven't released it on there, so I'm going to have to boot up the PC. My 5th favourite game of the Year of the Snake, and the only PC title on this list, is Far Cry 3. And what a beautiful game this is. Well, I knew it was going to be good because it topped many best of 2012 lists, but I was still skeptical about it, thinking, how can Far Cry really be that good? I played Far Cry 2 and I thought it was not bad. It was flawed. I loved the original Far Cry, but I think that's because I was so astounded by what they managed to create on the PC of the day that I had a very modest PC, and the game looked fantastic on it. And to this day, that game is a contender for my favourite game of all time on the PC. But this game has taken that original concept of the sort of open world island environment, bolted onto it a much better story, and a much larger island to play on. I mean, clearly the story itself is enough to keep you entertained. You could just stick to the narrative and follow it from beginning to end and really enjoy it. The story is well told. The performances, for the most part, are excellent. Some of them are some of the best I've ever seen in a video game. And the action elements of it, the sort of the stealth, and the gunplay is very well done. But for me, it was the vast open world, expansive sandbox that they give you and let you run around and play in pretty much from the beginning. It's not like games like Assassin's Creed, where it forces you into a particular area and doesn't let you stray beyond it. This, you can run amok on the whole map from the get-go if you want to. It makes the story itself feel unrealistic if you do that, because the basic plot is you're a young guy who's gone on an adventure holiday with his brothers and his friends and their girlfriends, and after skydiving over an island and parachuting onto it, they're captured by pirates, and the game begins that you're locked in a wooden cage and being taunted by one of the ringleaders of the pirate gang, and kind of scared and made to feel intimidated by him. And of course you escape and your adventure begins. But that journey then takes you to meeting other people on the island and rescuing friends. You know, you've got to find your friends and rescue them and escape the island, which is the basic idea of what it's all about. But it's the other unscripted parts of the game which I found even more interesting. This being allowed to go and explore the island, go hunting for animal skins so you can build a larger rucksack to keep more loot in it, build a more sturdy gun belt so you can hold more guns and ammunition pouches, and by exploring the island and climbing the broadcast towers and unlocking them, removing a jammer that's on each one, you then have more weapons that are available in your inventory that you can go and then buy from shops. So it's just the experience of the game that I like, that free experience that came with it, that you could just run around the island and have fun on it. And I hope that if they do make a Far Cry 4, they make a virtual reality version of it, because I could imagine myself when playing Far Cry 3, I wanted to be in... I mean, just the way the game works, it does make you feel quite immersed in it because it is first person, but I wanted to be even more absorbed in the environment. So, just a fantastic title. But there were games that I loved even more than this one. And the next couple of titles are console based, so let's head into the other room and I'll tell you all about those. Now, this third game is another PlayStation 3 title, and it's one that I must admit, upon hearing about it, I was intrigued, but it didn't seem like the type of game that I would love necessarily. But playing it and the two other games on the disc, I was completely sold on the world that they had managed to create. Such a talented game company. It's that game company's Journey Collector's Edition. And this is another game with a beautiful story to it, but it's not told in a traditional way. There are no words. You just have to kind of interpret what you're seeing, and that's one of the sort of the nice things about it, is it's left for you to interpret what's really happening in the story. It's I guess a kind of nomadic character who's on a journey to reach something that's on the top of a hill or top of a mountain very, very far away. I don't want to spoil too much for you, but it's, you know, that old saying that it's the journey that is important, not the destination, and that's kind of the way in this game. It's just a beautiful sort of desert environment that you get to travel through, and a magical land. To me, it seemed like it was an alien world. It was these strange, ghostly sort of creatures who can float and, I guess, slide and drift through the deserts. I don't really know what to tell you about this game, apart from just go and try it and experience it. I found it quite moving, actually. The final parts of the game, it was touching, but I don't think, without actually playing it, it's difficult to explain, difficult to show it. It needs to be played to share that experience. But if you do own a PlayStation 3 and you haven't tried this yet, this is very, very good value for money. You can download the game from the PlayStation Network, from the PlayStation Store. But I've actually got the physical collector's edition copy of it, and I think it's about £20, but it comes with 3 games on there, and the other 2 games are fantastic. They're more experiences than games, really. There's Flow, that allows you to be a microorganism floating in some kind of, I guess, a petri dish or whatever it is, wherever the organism's living, and it grows as you go through the levels of the game. There's Flower, which you're basically the wind, and you blow along and you collect petals and leaves, and you have to awaken the other flowers in the field to complete the level. And it sounds kind of trippy and hippie sort of thing, and if somebody had explained it to me, I probably wouldn't. I would probably dismiss it and not worry, but there's something about the way that game plays that reminded me of Space Harrier. There's a sort of speed of motion of flying across the landscape that captivated me as soon as I played it. And those 2 games alone are fantastic, but it's Journey that's the real gem of this disc, and I can't recommend it enough. Go out and buy it. If you haven't got a PlayStation 3, go and buy a PlayStation 3 so you can play some of these great titles. I'm sure you can pick one up for about £100 now. My second favourite game of the Year of the Snake, and my final PlayStation 3 title on this list, is something that I bought on a whim and really didn't expect to enjoy because there was so much hype surrounding it. It's a game that regularly tops some people's best game of 2013 list. It's the latest installment in a long franchise of titles, and although I've played most, if not all, of the other games that this franchise has put out, I haven't been that impressed with them. I haven't loved them like other people have. But this not final installment, but this latest installment is one that has definitely got me hooked and got me putting hours and hours into the game and actually playing it through twice. And that game is Grand Theft Auto 5. And this is a game that I've played extensively. I got all the way to the end of it and then just went straight back again to the beginning and played through it again because I wanted to re-experience the beginning of the game, because even though it had only been a week or so since I'd first played the beginning. I'd forgotten a lot of what had happened, and I wanted to go and experience it again from the perspective of having got to the end of the game. So, unfortunately, I haven't got it here with me, so I can't put it on the television in the background. I took it back to the UK because I thought, I'm not really going to be using it over the next few months. I can't play the online feature very well here. I'll just wait until I get back to the UK to use that. So I took it back and brought back some other games in its place. But that's not to say it's not a fantastic game. It's really good, and I liked it because I wasn't expecting to like it. I know there have been a lot of hype around it, people saying it's fantastic, it was the fastest selling game of all time, but still I didn't expect to like it because all of those things that people said about it being great, they said about Grand Theft Auto 4, and I really didn't like that game. I thought the world was kind of dull and hollow and empty. I didn't really enjoy the story much at all, got about halfway through the game and just gave up with it. Whereas Grand Theft Auto 5 had me hooked from the beginning to the end. The story was great, the characters were quite evil, some of them, but really interesting to watch and play as. But I guess one of the things that, or two of the things that really bugged me about the previous games were that each element of the game I didn't find particularly good in itself. The driving elements were never to my satisfaction. They were never as good as a standalone driving game. The shooting, the fighting elements, they never seemed to hold up for me. The world itself, that was another element. It always felt too hollow. It was a large, expansive place, but it never felt real. All of those things have been addressed in this one. The driving just seems to be much better. Definitely the shooting, they've brought in the element of cover shooting into it, which really works in the game, and it's a lot more playable in that sense. And the world itself is the best thing. It's beautiful considering it's done on a PlayStation 3. Although I was left thinking, I wish they'd have done this game on a next generation system, because you could feel that it was stretching the limits of the machine, but still it is fantastic. And it feels alive. There's so much to do, and it's so varied as well. It's bright and colourful in places, dark and nasty in others. And I guess it's all you could really ask for from a Grand Theft Auto game. But the only thing I think it's lacking, that I don't think they're going to address in any Grand Theft Auto games, is that I want the choice of not being a criminal. I want to actually turn out to be a good guy in the story. I really felt with Grand Theft Auto 4 that was the way they were going to go, because it always felt to me that here's a guy who doesn't want to be a bad guy anymore. Let him not be a bad guy, but he just seemed to forever be hanging out with and working with complete douchebags, and you've got no choice about it. You have to do those missions. And still, it's linear in that respect in this one, but so much better. Plays a lot of sort of tributes or homages to movies that I love as well. Things like Heat is one of my all-time favourite movies, and seeing that replicated within the game at one point is, or a couple of points, is really, really quite cool. So even if you don't like the Grand Theft Auto games, I would definitely recommend it. Go and check it out, because this is coming from someone who is not a Grand Theft Auto fanboy by any stretch of the imagination, but I still got a lot out of this game, and I expect to get more out of it in the future. Well, the last game on my list, and my favourite game of the Year of the Snake, is something that when I purchased it, I was expecting to enjoy it, but definitely not expecting to love it anywhere near as much as I have. It's not a game that's available for any of the consoles as yet, and probably never will be. It's only currently available for the PC and Mac, possibly Linux. and it is being adapted to the iPad and I think Android as well. And when that happens, the desktop computer versions are going to get a full upgrade to what this enhanced edition is going to be like. There's a lot more content coming to it. It's a very short game, but it has great replayability. So let me go into the other room and tell you a bit more about it. So here we are, number one on my list, my favourite game that I played in the year of the snake, FTL, Faster Than Light. A simple little indie game, but an amazingly compelling game that keeps you, well, keeps me wanting to come back and play it again and again and again, day after day, week after week, month after month. I still come back and play this from time to time, and I can see myself playing it well into the future as well. And the thing is, it just has that replayability factor that every time you play the game, it's slightly different. The scenarios don't play out in the same order, although you are going from point A to point B to point C to, you know, there are 7 galaxies or systems that you have to get through, and your destination is at the end of those. Each encounter within that is slightly different. Of course, there are the same types of encounters that keep coming up again and again. You go to one system and there's a starship that needs to be fought. There's a marauding pirate. There are people that need to be rescued. Sometimes you get to a system and there's nothing happening there and you can just jump to the next one. But it's that randomness that keeps you wanting to play it, because sometimes the pure roll of the dice, it can be incredibly difficult at the end, and my spaceship can be destroyed within the first couple of jumps. Other times I play it, I get sort of 5 or 6 systems along almost to the final destination and I get destroyed. Sometimes I get all the way to the end, although I think I've only managed to complete it once on the normal level in all those more than 100 hours. Playing it on easy level still gives me enough of a challenge that I can get to near the end of the game or get to the end of the game, but I'm not guaranteed that I'm going to win every time. But I've now given up playing it on easy level and I'm playing through on normal level, and I expect once I've played it enough on the normal level, it'll probably open up a hard level and that will be way too difficult for me. But what is it? Well, you know, what type of game you're thinking? Well, it's very simply a starship management game, I guess, is one way of thinking of it. You have a ship with a crew and you tell the little people what to do, where to go on the starship, and you command your starship to fire on the enemy ship, and you have to manage all of the power systems. And it's this nice little balancing act, taking what resources you have and using them to the best of your ability to suit the challenge that's in front of you. And as the game moves along and you increase the systems on your ship, balancing the power systems becomes more interesting, and the game throws curveballs at you every now and again. You know, you might fly into a nebula where it's got an ion storm and that wipes out half of your power, and so you have to regulate your systems in a different sort of way. You have to apply different strategies. Sometimes the enemy boards your ship and the people manning the consoles within your starship have to fight and take out these guys. It's just such a little compelling little game that I don't tire of it, and I think that's exactly why it's number one. I still enjoy it as much after 120 hours as I did when I first started playing. In fact, I think I probably enjoy it more because I know how to play the game, and I'm still learning. My strategies that I use are never perfect, because it's, you know, it's not like I get to the end of the game every time I play it. So there's a lot more to learn within it, and there's a whole new updater. I think they're calling it the Enhanced Edition, that's coming out. Well, I think it was supposed to come out in January, but it's going to be coming out soon, because they're releasing it on the iPad, on iOS, probably on Android as well. And when that happens, they're going to update the PC and Mac version for free with all of the new content that's being developed for this iOS edition. So it's very, very exciting, and you know, I'll still be able to play the vanilla mode, but then if I want to play the enhanced version, I can do that at the click of a button. I couldn't recommend this game enough. I'll tell you how much I like this game. I've already gone and bought 2 more copies of the game and gifted it to friends, because I knew it's the kind of thing they would like, but they wouldn't go out and buy it because it's not a AAA title. It doesn't have fancy graphics. It's pretty minimalist, but it's amazing, and they've tried it, they've liked it, they're getting into it, and hopefully this might inspire a couple of you to go out and get it as well. You can quite often see it on Steam sales if you don't want to pay full price. I mean, full price is only $9.99 or £6.99. But when I first got it as part of the Humble Bundle, and I think I paid about $15 for the whole thing, and I've played some of the other games that are in that bundle, but this is by far the one I've played the most, and it felt quite good to then go and buy the game for a couple of friends, because it felt like I was giving the developer of this game money that they really deserved. It almost felt a bit of a cheat getting it in the Humble Bundle, because I got it so cheaply. I think there were 6 or 8 games in there, and well, I could have paid less than $15. I think I could have got away with paying about $3, and I still would have got all of the games. But it feels like you're cheating people out of hard-earned money, and cheating the charity as well if you only give them that minimal amount. So fantastic game. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. So let me know what you think about any of these games. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. Maybe I'll do something similar to this in the future. I'm pretty sure come the end of the horse I will be making a similar video. I might well be back in the UK then, although I'm not 100% sure about that. So thank you very much for watching. From my spare room to wherever you are, this is Simon signing off. Bye bye.